So, okay, well, I'm just gonna welcome everyone and say thank you so much for coming today. As you all know, today is National Healthcare Decisions Day, and it's an annual educational event that has been going on for a number of years. And it's promoted and organized by the Conversation Project. So it's all about having the conversation. And they work with the Institute of Healthcare for Healthcare Improvement. Their website, you can easily find them if you just look up the Conversation Project. And so the materials that we're working with today, much of it comes from the Conversation Project. They have a wonderful packet, which your conversation starter guide. And I personally went online and used it yesterday. You can download the PDF and you can start doing the work yourself by answering the questions. And it's a really good kind of opener. So we really appreciate all the people around the globe and especially around the world that are working on this project today. So we're one of many. And I want to introduce the Florida End-of-Life Doula Association. Some of us here are members. How about if we raise our hands, those of us who are members? Okay, and we're the presenters today. We've been meeting since 2019, kind of loosely organized around the state to support end-of-life doulas and those they serve. This particular event is dear to our hearts because when we don't plan and we don't share our plan, we are doing a disservice to those who are left behind. If we should die and leave nothing known or said, it just makes it really hard on the people who are there who have to deal with it. So, you know, the mystery in life is that we don't know when, where, most of us, or how we will die. But it's guaranteed to happen at some point. So the Florida End-of-Life Doula Association, our vision is to support, empower, and educate and serve our communities. And so this event is a special part of that. So myself, I'm a grief recovery method specialist, and I know that the grief is compounded and increased if we don't do this planning and this communicating, because not only if we die, not only are they left, you know, in sorrow and you know, with a lot of stuff to figure out, but they don't even know what they're supposed to do or what we would have wanted, and or where's this and that. So where are the keys? Where are the papers? What are we supposed to do? So the grief is intensified when that happens. And I want to share with you the mission statement for the Florida End-of-Life Doula Association. It says, as a network of Florida End-of-Life doulas, we provide resources, non-medical care, and compassionate support to the dying, their families and friends. We serve as advocates to ensure the wishes of those who are in the death process are respected. So sometimes, you know, you need an ally, you need somebody who's not a family member to speak and communicate and help out in the process of everything that's going on. Sometimes things are too charged for family. So we just hope that today's meeting will give you a lot of good information that you'll be able to use. And so I would like to introduce, oh, I know, I'm going to introduce myself. I have been in Gainesville since 1979. I came when my children were very small. And I had been in some severe grief and trauma myself. So Gainesville became my place to heal and grow. And it's my forever home. So between 2013 and 2018, I had 7 family members die. And I was also taking care of my mother with Alzheimer's at the time. So I ended up with a lot of accumulated grief, and I ended up becoming a grief recovery method specialist. So that is my area of expertise, is, you know, helping people recover with recovery from grief. And I guess that's all I really want to say. I'm going to turn it over to Sherry Klein. Oh, by the way, I'm in Gainesville. We can kind of say where we are. Sherry, I'm going to let you go ahead.
So I am in Palm Coast right now, and I moved here pretty much after I retired from the VA in Gainesville, and I retired as a geriatric nurse practitioner there. And then I became a certified end-of-life doula. And that's because my passion is working with people in the end of their lives and making sure they have the best life up until their last breath. And it's possible if we do planning. I just really like to do this kind of work, and I know it's hard for people. So I just, it's definitely my passion. And if people plan for things, like we plan for everything, right? We plan to buy a new house or to get a new job or to take a new education course. We plan a lot, but most of the time there's too many people who overlook the planning of the end of their life. And it is probably the most important conversation. Like Shanti just said, it is a disservice for the people we leave behind. And not only that, but people really have much more power than they realize, I think. And just because it's an uncomfortable thing to talk about, we tend to not talk about it. And in this little session today, we're hoping to alleviate some of those fears and let you know that this conversation you have with your loved ones is going to be really important for you and for your loved ones. So that's kind of why we're here, and we're going to go over the documents you might need, the kinds of conversations you would have, how to trigger you identifying in yourself what's really important to you. So we're going to kind of go over all of those kinds of things so that you can prepare for the best death possible. And then I'm going to turn it back to, do I go on with the?
I think I can pick it up if you want.
Do I go on with the documents now?
No, I'll take it over.
Okay. Here we go.
I'll take over here because we've already heard a few times from other members, and I'd like to introduce myself briefly. My name is Anna Schwait, and professionally, I retired from working at the College of Nursing at the University of Florida, where I taught for 14 years, and I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. After retirement, it felt like my life did a complete circle, and I came back to do the work that is, like Sherry mentioned, her passion. I think I don't say it lightly when I say that end-of-life work is my calling in life. I have been doing this all of my life, it seems that. And by this, I mean being present to provide care, to create a sacred space, to provide education and guidance and support, psychological and spiritual support. So I invite you, if you want to look at my website, compassionatecarenow.com, and you'll learn more about all of the work that we do as doulas there. But for today's topic, I wanted to start with the conversation because this is a National Healthcare Decisions Day, and I'm glad that you're here and that you've taken the time because it's an important time in life to be at now. And what we've heard already is that, we all know that we're going to die, and that is something that universally, right? We don't deny that. The issue is that we don't know when or how, like Bonnie said, that we don't know the circumstances. For example, I could have a heart attack, I could have a stroke, my body could start to shut down. Maybe I already have a chronic illness that's going to continue to cause my body to deteriorate, or a cancer that's going to become metastatic. I just don't know exactly what the life-threatening situation will be. but more than likely, I'm going to end up in an intensive care unit under those circumstances, because that's the best place to go when these things happen. Obviously, and all of us are probably familiar with an intensive care unit with the monitors there flashing, saying what's going on with our body, with the heart rate and the respirations, the blood pressure. We know the IV fluids going in, the drains coming out. Perhaps there's a feeding tube giving nutrition to bypass swallowing. And there may be even a tracheostomy tube inserted surgically, a tube so that a ventilator can breathe for us in and out. And this wonderful technology, we have it available. And yet in that situation, when your loved one walks in, that's not the time to begin the conversation about what you want and how you want it to be. That is not. And in fact, most cases in an intensive care unit, the person in the bed can't talk. They're either being sedated or treated with pain medication or perhaps intubated, something going on that they can't sit up and have this dialogue that we're discussing today. And so what we know is that since that isn't the time to have the conversation, when is it a good time to become thinking about it now, while we're all here, while we're clear? And what do I mean? Thinking about what would be something that you want to have at the end of your life. How do you want it to look? How do you want it to be? What is a good day for you? What would be meaningful according to your own life values, according to who you are and how you've lived? What would be meaningful to you? And again, on the other side, what is it that you absolutely don't want to happen? I definitely don't want this to happen. And I have clearly described that for myself, what I want and what I don't want to happen. Now, let me be clear. If I have a heart attack today, I hope that doesn't happen, but if I did have a heart attack today, I want you to call 911 and I want you to do CPR and I want you to get me to that intensive care unit and hook me up to those monitors, because chances are I'm going to be okay. And chances are I'm going to survive and I'm going to make it, right? I mean, that's what the medicine and the technology is there for. Let me be clear, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a time in my life that will come when my body starts to shut down, when my organs don't work anymore. Perhaps I've lost my awareness and my consciousness because I've had either trauma or a blood clot or lack of oxygen to my brain. Or perhaps I have a disease that has taken over and adding more treatments won't give me the quality of life that I want to have. That's the conversation that I'm talking about. And then what we do is once we have the thoughts of what is good for us and what isn't a good day for us, we find someone who we want to have the conversation with and we tell them what our wishes are. Now, I don't want to simplify it and say this isn't a hard conversation. It's extremely hard conversation. It is. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we're going to sit down with someone who we trust, someone that we love, and say to them, this is what I want you to do for me at the end of my life. I mean, that gets rough. And actually, I have people that tell me, why do you want me to have this conversation? It's so depressing. It's so anxiety producing. It's such a downer. It's like doomsday. Come on. Why? And it's because I don't see it like that. I actually see that the conversation allows you to become empowered, because right now, today, you can start thinking about with clarity what it is that you want and what it is that you don't want. And you can own that, and that can become your reality. It allows you to be proactive, because then you're going to choose somebody who you're going to tell the steps to, and they're going to document it, and it's going to be in place for the process to continue. And it's a conversation that is a gift. It's an act of kindness, if you will, to someone who is going to walk in and is going to feel that dreaded, unbearable pain of loss. And I say that with feeling it in my being, because they will know then, I know what she wanted. I know what she wanted to have at the end of her life, and they will be able to carry out my wishes. But now that we've thought about it and started the conversation, what is it that we need to do next in order to have this become a process that's effective? Sherry?
Yeah, so the documents that we need, I'm going to refer right back to what Shanti said about the conversation project. If you go there, you will be able to download the forms. So that's such an easy name to remember, the conversation project. And if you put in NHDD for today, National Healthcare Decision Day, go to Advanced Care Planning, and all the documents are there. And I will refer to the section under Florida because all the states are listed separately because they're a little bit different. But advanced care directives, what are your advanced directives? There are actually 3 different documents. And based on what Anna said, that's what really comes first. And sometimes those decisions don't happen in one setting. They might take place over a few conversations to really understand what you're saying. And when you get those, you want to find your healthcare surrogate or your healthcare proxy or your durable health care power of attorney. They have nothing to do with your money, okay? And what you do, though, you will find the person who can honor your wishes, and you will involve them on your planning. Because oftentimes, if you mention to your children or your parents or your husband, wife, you might say, if this and this happens, I want this to take place. If this and this happens, I want nothing. For example, if I'm terminally ill, I don't want to be ventilated. I don't want a tube feeding started. I just want to die naturally with dignity and comfort. And there are a lot of people who can't do that. The people who are sometimes closest to us can't. And if you need to trust them that they'll be honest with you when you ask them to represent and advocate your wishes when the time comes, even if they feel differently about it, as long as they're going to represent you. So the living will is the document that will state what you want or don't want in the event of, you're terminally ill. And on this site, for example, I printed it off. It's very short. It really is very short considering it's so important. But down here, you can write in your additional instructions. And basically, the living will goes into action if you have a terminal condition and you have an end stage condition, and you're maybe in a persistent vegetated state. And the doctors say that you have lack mental capacity. So that this form will be yours. When you do fill it out, all these forms, the living will and the other one, which will designate your healthcare power of attorney. Okay, designation of healthcare surrogacy is what it says in Florida, it's titled. And you want to make a lot of copies, and you choose one healthcare person, advocate for you, and then you can choose a second. It's a good idea to have a second. We used to say, make sure they live close to you, but now with Zoom and airplanes and things, you can get close and you can advocate for people as long as you know. I know I've had phone calls and I've been in very precarious, well, not precarious, but in a situation, we'll say we're having a party and I'll get the call and I have to represent and say what that person wants. And that's important to know. So now the thing with this designation of healthcare surrogates, I just want to tell you, it's not only for end-of-life issues. It will go into action if, for example, I'm in a car accident, or say I'm a diabetic and I'm in a diabetic coma. It's not really the end of my life, but I'm not available to give my wishes. So this healthcare surrogate is going to represent me. And so it's really important. And I don't care if you're 18 or 99, you really should have one. Now, all these documents too, remember, you can change them. And when you change them, the most recent date will be what you need to, make sure everybody involved gets it. And also it's good if your family isn't maybe the surrogate, let them know though what's going on. That will kind of soften the blow for the person who is the surrogate, because sometimes there's some dissension, and we want it to be as peaceful for everybody. So, and then the third one is an anatomical organ donation, which Ola is going to talk about a little bit later. And so Shanti, do we need a lawyer for this?
Okay, so I happen to have had my attorney draw up the living will and the healthcare surrogate papers, but I really could have done it myself, especially if I had a good model to go from that was a legal document, so that I knew what to include in it. So yes, you can actually create these documents yourself. By the way, on the living will, you also would have, we also would say that to your physician and an additional physician have agreed that there is no reasonable chance of recovery. So this is, this isn't just like, well, in 3 months you could be better. This is when they really know. But so, yeah, and the healthcare surrogate document, you could write it up yourself. There are plenty of resources online between the Conversation Project and National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization. They have forms, and there's a lot of people who are really wanting everyone to have this information. So it's easily accessible online. And, like in Florida, you just have to have it signed by 2 witnesses, but I believe that they would not be your close family members. They would be witnesses who are not in your circle. It could be a nurse and a friend, but your witnesses, I believe, shouldn't be close, intimates of yours. And you don't have to notarize them, just 2 witnesses. But, my thing is, like, why not get it notarized? Because that proves that it was signed. If there's any chance of a disagreement or question coming into question, why not have a notary on there? Because they have established who you are and looked at your license and put their seal on it. I think it's a good extra step. And then, like we said earlier, this has nothing to do with your money. This is all about your care, your medical care. So a will, a trust, and a durable power of attorney to handle your affairs is what an elder law attorney would help with. So, don't get confused between living will and will. So the will is all about your assets and your money and your, perhaps your children, your elders, your pets, your people, and your things. And if you have property, on that note, if you had property, you'd probably want to have a trust. But yeah, there are certain things that we have to get an attorney to help us with. So let's see. I think that's it on that one. So what we're going to do now is, Alicia, Ola, are you there? And you want to go ahead and talk about organ donation? And also other parts.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Shanti.
And you can introduce yourself too.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so my name is Alicia Olapeju Milligan. So my middle name is Olapeju, and most people call me Olapeju or Ola for short. So you may hear me being referred to as Ola. So I am a registered nurse that work in the ICU, the intensive care unit. I've worked in the intensive care unit for the past 8 years, and I've been a nurse altogether for 16 years. And as was mentioned earlier, I do see a lot of situations in the ICU where this conversation did not take place, or this conversation was probably initiated at one point, but was not completed. And so I've seen over the years the difficulty in trying to make these decisions in that moment in such an intensive environment. And so, you know, having this conversation so far ahead of time is, or ahead of time is very, very important. And one of those decisions that I do see families struggle with a lot of times is, so that is an area where making an informed decision as to whether or not you want to donate your organs is very important. There is an opportunity to donate in 3 different areas. Usually someone can donate their organs, they may donate tissue, or they may donate their eye. And so for organs, usually the focus is on the kidney, the liver, the heart. And in that case, they usually are in the ICU because those organs need to be, you know, kept as healthy as possible if they would like to share them with someone else. And then the others, the tissue or the eye, they don't necessarily have to have been in ICU. In other words, it may be a sudden death and they are not in the hospital. So with organ donation, one of the things that can be done is, I don't know if you ever remember going to the DMV to get your license or to renew your license, and they would ask you at that time if you would like to be an organ donor. That's one area where you may choose to be an organ donor. And in that case, your name will be placed on a registry. So it is known at that time to your family or to your loved one that you've already made that decision and you're registered. Another area, you may also register online. There is a company called Donate Life, where you may go. Donate Life, I believe is donatelife.com. You may also go there and add your name to a registry and specify what your wishes are. And so in that case, you have what's called, you know, tissue bank or organ banks or OP or organ procurement organizations that when someone does make that transition, they're able to go to the registry and they're able to check to see whether or not you've already made that decision. And that way it becomes a lot easier for your family to have one less thing that they have to really, really worry, you know, about making a decision about, because you've already done that. So that's organ donation. Another area where it becomes a very challenging for families all the time is the decision to resuscitate or not to resuscitate, or what we call DNR, right? So DNR stands for do not resuscitate. And to resuscitate really means to revitalize the body or to revive the body. So there are 2 main areas that we focus on with resuscitating the body, and we combine it by saying cardiopulmonary. So you know the term CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Cardio refers to the heart and pulmonary refers to the lungs. So at some point, the heart may stop or the lungs may stop, you know, breathing, and you may choose to resuscitate by bringing life back to the lungs or life back to the heart. In a case where a patient or client or family member or yourself will say, I do not want to be resuscitated, that means you do not want the heart to be revived. You do not want compressions. You do not want to be shocked. You do not want to have chemical shocking as well, which are very powerful drugs like epinephrine that will be used to revive the heart. Or you may choose that you don't want CPR. You don't want to have chest compressions, but the other area is the lungs, which is pulmonary. You may choose, I don't want to have chest compressions. I don't want to be shocked, but I do want to be on a ventilator. I do want to be intubated, which means I want to at least continue to breathe for a period of time. Because your heart may have stopped, but your heart may not have stopped, but you may still be able to, I'm saying that wrong. Your heart may not have stopped, but you may have trouble breathing. So DNR also not only covers if your heart stops, but it also covers if you would like to be on a ventilator, right? So in Florida, the form that you will see is this yellow form. It's a long form, and we refer to it as the golden rod, which is this nice golden yellow color. And it is a document that is filled out by yourself and your physician, or the physician and whoever the healthcare surrogate will be, whoever the person is that's going to be helping to make decisions. And again, it basically says if your heart stops or if you stop breathing, the medical personnel would not bring you back by doing cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Okay, and what's good about this form is at the very bottom, whatever it says in the main portion of the form, at the very bottom, there's a mini version of it, and it's perforated, so it can be cut out, it can be folded, and it can be placed in your wallet or in your purse, so that, you know, anyone who may find you in a situation where you need help can quickly check and see whether or not you have a DNR. And in the home, most of the time, this is placed, or we ask that it's placed somewhere visible. For example, on the refrigerator, that's the most common spot where you would see a DNR form placed. So if anyone comes in an emergency, it's right there and there's no mistake. So in a situation where you have not already filled out a DNR form, or you do not have a healthcare surrogate that can make that decision for you, in that case, your state has designated in order who can help to make that decision for you. Okay, so you're incapacitated, you're not able to make that decision, and you don't already have a healthcare surrogate that is in writing that will make decisions for you. In that case, in the correct order, you have anyone who is appointed by the courts. So a judicially appointed guardian will be the next person in line to make decisions for you. If that has not been done or does not apply, the next person in line would be your spouse, your husband or your wife. And if you're not married, the next person in line will be your adult children. So your son or daughter who's over the age of 18, or who is at the age of 18 or older. And if you do not have adult children, then next is your parent. And if you don't have parents who can make that decision, then pretty much any adult relative who you've kept in contact with, you know, over the year, an aunt, a cousin. And we do run into situations where a person just does not have any family members, and in that case, a close friend. Sometimes we've even had a neighbor that's had to make that decision to resuscitate or not to resuscitate a patient. So yeah, that's, you know, two areas that it's very important to have this conversation as early as possible, so that when a person is in that situation, they can have as comfortable and as traumaless and as dramaless of a transition as possible, and be able to spend as much time with their loved one as possible during their last moments in life, as opposed to having to make such really, really important decisions in an emergency. Okay, thank you. And when we talk about, wanting to have as comfortable as transition as possible, we have an example that's going to be shared by Ms. Sherry Klein on examples that she's found that, making this decision was very, very helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, Alicia. Your points are right on. And where before I was introducing myself, I didn't tell you that I actually have a website too, if anybody cares to go and find out more about me and what I do. It's called agewelldiewell.com, because I'm all about, like I said, being as well as you can be until your last breath. So my little example is very personal. And unfortunately or fortunately, I've had a lot of personal experience in the family with this, and they've taught me so much, way more than I've had, with the hundreds and hundreds of people I've shared as clients or patients. So my dad had moved from Texas to Florida. When he lived in Texas, he had all his documents drawn up by a lawyer. And he had, and his doctor and everything, everybody in the family was in on it. He had the living will. He had the healthcare surrogate named my sister, who lived 1 mile from him in Texas. And he had a DNR, a yellow DNR form. He had end-stage COPD. And so he moved to Gainesville, where I was living. And before I went to work that day, it was a 3 to 11, 3 to 12 shift. And I was working in ICU at the time. And he called, and my family called a few times throughout the day saying, he's not doing too good. He's just not doing too good. He's sleeping a lot, and he didn't really eat much. And so I booked it out of my shift as soon as I could. I didn't hang around and talk to everyone. And I got home, and he was still at my house. He made the decision that day before I went to work. I'd been begging him to live with us because it would be easier for me and my family to help take care of him, because as it was, we were going to pick him up every morning and they were taking him home every night and that kind of thing. And my kids are great and they loved it. And so that day before I went to work, he said, okay, I will move in with you. And that night he stayed. He decided to stay. So my son had just had a shoulder surgery the day before. He must have been 14 or 15 at the time. And he was sitting there. And when I walked in the house, I said, where's Gramps? He said, in the bathroom. So I thought, and I said, hey, Dad. He didn't really answer. And I went in the bathroom and he couldn't really communicate. I'd say, had stroked out. And I got him back to the living room couch. And he did talk to me. He said he wanted some orange juice. Well, I'm looking at his oxygen tank, which was empty. And they hadn't brought the concentrator over. So he was very hypoxic. And he was, he was gasping for breath. And I said, Dad, I'm calling 911. We're going to take you to the hospital. It was the quickest way to get him oxygen because remember, my whole goal is to give him comfort care, no matter what it takes. And oxygen is comfort. In this situation, it would have been comforting for him, and I had no oxygen to give him. So I call 911. As I'm talking to 911, he goes into agonal breathing. end-of-life breathing. And my son is sitting right there. And the operator said, "Do you know how to start CPR?" I'm like, "I just coded 2 people earlier today. Yeah, I do." My father is a DNR. He does not want to be intubated. He does not want to be shocked. And they said, "Well, do you have the proof?" And I said, "No." I looked in his wallet. He didn't have that little piece of the yellow form. That's so important. He had copies at his house. We had copies in Texas at my sister's, and it was like 12:30 at night. So I just held him and I comforted him. And the operator was telling me, the 911 was saying, "You must start CPR, you must." I said, "I'm not going to. I'm going to, comfort my father and just hold him and let nature take its course." And so my son is outside waving down, the ambulance and the fire trucks are there. They all come. Because I didn't have that form, in just a second, he was slid down on the floor. He had IJs going here. He had groin access being put in. He was being shocked. He was being intubated. And I was on the phone with the ER doctor who was running the code from Shands. And I explained to them this about, his real wishes are, he is a DNR. And so he said, "Well, if you can prove it with a 3-way call, if your sister can read it to me over the phone from Texas, we'll stop the code." So I called my sister, and remember, Ola just got done saying, we want these things to be traumaless and as dramaless as possible. Well, it wasn't. And now my father really was gone very quickly. So he didn't really participate in very much drama on his behalf, because he really left quickly, and it felt that his spirit left very quickly too. He was ready, I would say. But they carried on for 40 minutes on my living room floor, and it was very unnecessary, I felt, if I had only had that paper. So I really encourage people, and it taught me a huge lesson that I tell everyone: carry one in your pocketbook, carry one in your wallet, a mini size, carry who your healthcare surrogate is, which they were going to change it to me. They just didn't yet. So anyway, that's just the importance of knowing where your documents are. It can really, it would have been so much nicer just to have held my father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so sorry that happened. Yeah.
My son, he's in healthcare now because of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you so much. And we're running a little short on time, so we're going to go straight over to Lee.
Thank you. Once again, my condolences, Sherry. It's a very, very important lesson. My father, too, was influential in my becoming a doula. And I've been a certified doula for 5 years. And even though I specialize in legacy work and vigil, I have been and continue to be happy to work with clients and their families in any area that comforts and reassures them. And like all of my colleagues, I do encourage you to visit the Conversation Project website and to have you urge your family members and loved ones to do so. I'm going to talk just a little bit about personal comfort and preferences, and then relationships. The Conversation Project and many other websites that you can consult, like advanceddirectives.com, have a section where you can specify what you want, how you want to spend your time at the end of your life. It can be months, weeks, days, but it's good to prepare this document for the very same reasons that we've talked about preparing the other legal and medical documents. Who do you want to be present at your death? Who do you not want there? What's most important to you? Think about what you want. For example, as a doula on vigil duty at various times in a hospice where I was volunteering, I would walk into the room with the person non-responsive, and the TV would be blaring, just ear-splittingly blaring, with a game show. And I thought each time of the 2 times, would this person really want that? Or is it for the benefit of the people who don't really know what to do? Anyway, I turned the television off, but it would have been easier if the person had the opportunity, had been asked what they prefer. Some people do want some background noise so that they don't feel so isolated and alone. Other people would prefer soft music or their favorite music. We're all different. And it's good to know what kind of music you prefer, what kind of aromas or scents. I have a friend who's just crazy about lavender, and I know she would want her room. She would want the odor of lavender just emanating down the hall from where she was. Do you want someone to read to you? Some people get comfort out of perhaps having the Bible read to them, or Psalms, or other favorite books. Or maybe you want someone to tell you stories. This could be a relative telling you stories of family events, or it could be just a person who knows how to tell a good story from a book they've read or a story they've heard. And then there is the issue of what kind of funeral you want. We are fortunate in this area in Gainesville, where I am, to have a green cemetery where you can be buried, go directly from home and be buried in a beautiful site. But there are other options, and you may want to remain in the home for as much as 2 days so that relatives can come and say goodbye to you. Under Florida law, this means that after 24 hours, you need to have pallets of dry ice placed under you. But it is possible then for you to remain completely at home and be buried in the manner that you wish, or cremated, or whatever other options you prefer. All of these things will, if you decide upon them ahead of time, will bring comfort to your family. Suffering the loss at the same time that you have to be an administrator, as many of you may know, is very, very painful. And so to have documents accessible will be a wonderful, caring, and loving thing that you can do for your family and your physician, because many physicians agonize over the care of their patients at the final stage and after death. So having the conversation with someone that you love can help you think about these things and write down those thoughts in an organized way so that you can help your loved ones. And lastly, for me, are relationships. There are two types of unfinished business to consider as far as relationships are concerned. One is to resolve any relationships that might need repair. And another example of this, when I was doing hospice work, was sitting at the bedside of a woman whose family never came to see her, and they didn't have contact with her. She was unable to communicate, and her body was just folded. It was not a comfortable death for her, and I hung on to her as best I could as being the only one there. But if the conversation had taken place, if the repairs had been made, I feel so certain that her death would have been much more comfortable. So the time to start repairing is today. It might be that you need assistance from someone, maybe a friend to support you, making that phone call, making that video, writing that letter and mailing it after a day or two of thought, or simply reaching out and hugging and holding on to the person. And you may just want to say just a few words. I'm sorry for my part. My dad, when he died, took that opportunity with me. He had been angry at me, and he stopped talking to me for a few years before he died. It wasn't not my fault, but he said, I thought of you all those years. And at the time I was a single mother. And he said, I thought of you all those years raising those children alone. And that was when he could say it. But if you have the courage to start now, you can save those very traumatic moments. Some of the regrets that you have in life, if you have any regrets, now's the time to start repairing. The second kind of unfinished business in relationships might include what you've wanted to say to people in your life, and it may not, not have anything to do with repair, but I've always wanted to mention to you that kind of relationship conversation. And these things can be handled now, and they turn out sometimes to be very, very pleasant. You can do legacy work, you can make recordings, you can make videos. There are several ways that you can either send those messages now or have them available. Stories for young ones, a type of ethical will, what you wish for a person as their life goes on. And I have those for my grandchildren. What my hopes and dreams for them, and what I've always admired about them, and how much I love them and hope to be with them in spirit. So those messages will be extremely valuable. And as I said, sometimes very fun. So when you die, the stories that you leave are going to matter to the people who are left behind. And then I think Shanti and Sherry have a last list of things, kind of a checklist of things to consider, that other things you need to think about. If you drop dead on the street, what would happen? How would people know what to do? So they're going to go over that now. And then I think we have time for questions.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's kind of after that powerful presentation, this all just sounds kind of trivial, really. But I will just say, simple, practical things, names and contacts of relatives and friends, list of invitees, anything that you want, the kinds of things that Ali was just talking about. Some of these are repeated. I think the legacy thing is so important. And by the way, you can record your wishes, and whether it's a voice, or you can put it on YouTube so it's accessible. Make sure people have a link to it. Put the date. Make sure you say when it was that you said these things, and that these are my final wishes. Of course, account numbers, passwords, keys, safety deposit box, all these things that people would have to search for and have a lot of trouble with. And I mean, Sherry, you want me to just finish this quick list? It's not that exciting. Driver's license, car title, bill of sale, birth certificate, marriage certificate, Social Security card, Medicaid, Medicare. Just have copies of the stuff and leave it with your will and your papers, and make sure someone knows how to find it. The time has gone so quickly, and our audience has been here and stayed with us, and it's so thrilling to be here. I do want to say, please join us on our Facebook page, Florida End-of-Life Doula Association, and we're going to post this video there, and you'll find all of us there. Please feel free to visit and ask any questions or just connect with us. It's just a blessing to have you all here. And now we would just like to open it up to anyone who has a question or a comment. Just unmute your microphone and go for it in whatever way you'd like to share.
Yeah, just raise your hand, or if you're more comfortable typing your question in the chat, you can go ahead and do that.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Ann Robbins, and I'm in Texas actually. And I'm sorry, it's a cold, rainy day, and I've been.
Wow.
So, I am in my pajamas today, and I apologize. I didn't know I was going to be on camera, but I wanted to say thank you for this presentation. I'm joining you from Texas because I saw the link on the Facebook page. And I haven't finished my classes yet, but I have been in Alzheimer's care and care for special people 40 years plus, been an activities director. So I'm taking the doula classes, and hopefully within 6 months I'll be a doula. So I really wanted to jump on and kind of see what the conversation is. And just an aside, my mom passed away in '91 in Gainesville, Florida.
Oh.
And so Gainesville is kind of near and dear to me. And she actually worked at the University of Florida, and she was a gerontologist with a PhD in city planning. And she was part of the committee back then to make Gainesville elder-friendly community, one of those first before.
Wow,
Yeah, so I know she's smiling at me right now and saying, "You go, girl." So I just wanted to kind of say that to you, and thank you for all that you do. And I really appreciate it. And I'm going to check out all your sites and see what we can do. So thank you.
Yeah, let's stay in touch.
Yeah. Yes, I will give you a shout out, and I'll keep following you on the Facebook thing too. So thank you for letting me join today.
Thank you
for taking the time to tell us all that. See how small the world is?
It's very small. It really is. And this was just a nice conversation. So I took myself off the picture so I don't have to look at myself. But I really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ann.
Anyone else?
Thoughts or questions or even thoughts that you want to talk about?
Sure, I'll jump in. Hey, Sherry. So I'm here because Sherry was promoting this, and I like to support anything Sherry does. I'm Melissa, and I was in the doula giver class with Sherry. Thank you, ladies, for doing this, and especially thank you for doing it during the day. So many of these groups are and events take place at night that interfere with, family time, parenting responsibilities, and having the ability to really tune in during the day without those distractions is really great. So thank you for everything. And even though we did over a lot of the stuff in the doula class, I learned a lot from all of you today as well. So thank you for all that. Thank you for sharing your story, Sherry, about your dad. I have similarly interesting but different one, as I'm sure we all do, and I'll share with you sometime. But thank you for sharing that. And I know just the retelling of it can be emotional for years because we wish so much that we could give them the good death and the good transition, and we know what to do. And then in spite of it, the obstructions get put in our way. So thank you, ladies.
Wow.
And thank you for being part of the Florida Doula Association.
I'm trying.
And I have a question. Samuel, are you in Ghana or are you?
Yes, I'm in Ghana.
Oh, amazing.
Wow.
I'm in Ghana, and I really want to thank you guys for this wonderful presentation, and I've really learned a lot. Ghana is a developing country, and we are yet to move where you guys are. We know of palliative care and hospices. The Ghana College of Nurses have started a program like that, which I'm pursuing. I'm just interested in anything about the end of life, and all those things. So when I saw this, I thought I should join. And to be honest, I'm really blessed this afternoon. And it's like there was one thing bothering me concerning the DNR and the advanced care planning. Do you have to assess the mental state of the individual before the person has to put down things? Because let's say I have a condition, I know this condition eventually will take me away, so I have to give an advanced care planning. I think I'm okay, but in the definition of health, probably I have something in there that does not put me in a better state to make such decisions. Is there a way we can assess the person to say, no, this person has no mental or psychological issues, that's why he's making this choice? So that,
You mean to have him sign a DNR?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Because the doctor has to sign it, so they have to know the patient and agree that this is appropriate.
Okay.
And the surrogate or the patient themselves can sign it, but that's on the doctor.
Okay, so
And
the doctor has to assess, the doctor will assess, and then
that's right. And he signs the little tiny one in the corner, and he signs the big yellow. He signs both places, and he puts the date. And so we have to trust the physician that his judgment with the patient.
I was trying to tell Sherry that we don't have these laboratory and organ banks. What do you call them in your countries? You don't have them in Ghana, so you don't get people donating those things. And to get an ambulance to pick you in, I think in your states you just call 911 and they're there. It's not easy down here. So
where in Ghana are you?
I'm in Accra.
In Accra, yeah, the capital. Can you send us your email address? Maybe we can stay in touch.
Okay.
If you put it in the chat, we'd love to just have access or have contact with you, and feel free to keep in touch with us. This is what this is about, is creating those connections and this is the beginning of a conversation.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Anybody else? Sorry, I'm taking over.
Well, if that's it, everybody can always ask questions through the Facebook group in the future. Maybe next week you're thinking of something and you're wondering about a situation, just send us a post.
Sure. And also, if you're in a different area and you want us to help you find a local doula or something, we can always scout it out and just see who we might know of. So wonderful.
And I hope we were able to really bring across the point that this is important, because we've all lived long lives, some hardships, some